welcome future homeowners to So in the Know, your guide to shared ownership. I'm your host, Sarah Ellis, Head of After Sales, and today's podcast is especially for first-time buyers. So whether you're just starting your journey or you're knee-deep in process, this podcast is a great source for insights, tips and real-life stories. So grab your headphones, sit back and get ready to unlock shared ownership success with So in the Know. Now, I've got a fantastic guest joining us today, none other than Lynda Clark, editor of the leading First-Time Buyer magazine. Welcome, Lynda.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Sarah. So very nice to be here.
You are very welcome. Lynda's magazine offers insights and advice to those embarking on their home buying journey. So welcome, Lynda, and thank you so much for joining us on our first episode of the series.
Thank you.
Now, before we delve into Lynda's expertise, let me give you a snapshot of So Resi. Now, we are one of the biggest housing associations in the country, and we specialise in shared ownership, as well as other affordable housing options like affordable rents, rent to buy. Now, you might be wondering, what is shared ownership? Well, if so, you're in the right place. Shared ownership is an alternative means to owning your own home. So if you want to buy, but you can't afford to buy on the open market, shared ownership could be a great option for you. Now, the biggest advantage of shared ownership is that it gets people onto the property ladder. But in simple terms, shared ownership is when you buy a share of a property and you pay rent on the share that you don't own. Now, we're going to discover more about shared ownership and all of the nuances around it later on in the podcast. But before we do, I did a lot of research before I decided that we were going to do this podcast, and I listened to a lot of shows. I really wanted this podcast to stand out, but in truth, it's a bit of a dull subject. So what I do promise to deliver is that this podcast will give you everything that you need to know if you're considering embarking on your shared ownership journey. This podcast is not just about facts and figures. It's about real people, real experts, real stories, so you can make an informed decision. Now, I know 2022 and 2023 has been a bit of a roller coaster, especially for first-time buyers. The challenges have been real, from the soaring cost of living, increased mortgage rates, and general considerations over affordability. But it's not all doom and gloom. This year, So Resi has helped hundreds of first-time buyers achieve home ownership through shared ownership. And the market is certainly picking up. Confidence is resuming, interest rates are starting to settle, and December is actually usually one of our quieter months. We were just talking about this, Lynda.
Yes.
But we have got listings and offers coming in thick and fast. It certainly hasn't slowed down. So on that note, Lynda, let's jump straight in, and thank you again for joining us.
Yes, it's great news. I'm really pleased to hear.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It really is.
Good.
But to start with, Lynda, let's talk about the magazine.
Yes.
What's it about and who is it for?
So it is pretty much what it says on the cover. It's purely for first-time buyers. It's supposed to be there it's like a bit of a Bible for first-time buyers. It's full of information and help to get you onto the ladder. So there's a very interesting buyer's guide, which is a step-by-step journey that you would have to take from, starting out right the way through to getting your keys. There's information about conveyancing, which if not people don't understand that is the legal side of buying and selling a home. And then we've got things on finance, which is hugely important. Loads and loads of information and lots of properties that we feature that are mostly shared ownership, I have to say. The only thing we do just to lighten the load is we do some celebrity interviews, interiors, because everybody wants to dream, and you can't read about finance and things all the time. So we've just had about 2 issues ago, our 100th issue, which was a bit of a milestone.
Amazing.
So that was really good. And yes, it's bi-monthly, on sale in the usual spots, or you could subscribe and you can read it online for free.
Oh, amazing. And I've noticed you're always popping up at the home shows as well, so you can always grab a copy at some of the events.
We're always
that
at
we've
the
been
home
to.
shows, absolutely.
And I know you touched upon you don't just do shared ownership, but why do you think shared ownership is gaining so much popularity at the moment?
Oh, well, I mean, you're probably going to get me to say this word about 1,000 times. It's affordability.
Yeah.
That is basically the buzzword. It's the only affordable way to get on the ladder through the government scheme of shared ownership. As you explained in your beginning part, you only have to buy one bit of the home, how much you can afford, and then you pay a subsidised rent on the rest. So consequently, you only have to get a mortgage for the bit that you're buying, which is substantially less than buying on the open market. So your deposit will be a lot less.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, obviously, you don't just have to buy the share that's advertised. If you can afford more, you can buy more in the first instance, and you can buy more in stages as time goes on, which
absolutely.
I think that's one of the main appeals.
Too right. I mean, staircasing is what it's called, and you can, as and when you can afford it, you buy more. So the ultimate is, if you want to, you get to 100%, then it's yours completely. But I think So Resi were ahead of the game, because you have offered buying more shares for a long time on increments, haven't you? Isn't it a 1% increment?
Yeah, we have. So, some of our leases allow for you to buy 1% of your property every year for 15 years. And we initiated that model. It was called SO Plus at the time, and it's fantastic. A lot of customers take it up every year. Amazing. You don't have to use a lawyer either, which is great. So you can literally just buy 1% every year. To
be honest with you, a year goes by so quickly, and you get another 1%. So it does actually really mount up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really
I think it's
does.
a great idea. And as I say, staircasing doesn't always work for everybody. Some people don't want to staircase. They just sit and have what they've got. That's fine. I think that's, totally what they want to do. But the big secret is, it is your home. It doesn't belong to anybody else.
Exactly. And I've got friends that are in private renting at the moment.
Yeah.
I had one friend that their landlord gave notice because the mother-in-law was moving in.
Right.
And they moved out. The landlord did it up and just stuck it back on for a rental at a higher rate, which was, it was heartbreaking for them at the time. But it just goes to show it's not secure. It's not a long-term option.
No.
And if you can't afford to buy on the open market, shared ownership is such a good product.
Such a good option. Because even if you go in a rental and the rents are really rocketed out of all control recently, even if you've still got to put down a 6-month deposit on that rental. So why not put that money into shared ownership? It doesn't seem to it adds up completely.
It really does. And we've actually helped hundreds of customers achieve 100% ownership.
That's wonderful.
It's not just through staircasing. So a lot of people go into shared ownership, they purchase a share, but as time goes by, values go up. They're actually making money off their investment.
Yeah.
And then they've got enough to then put down on another property, and sometimes they move on and then go off and buy on the open market. So there's various avenues that can get you into full ownership.
Because most first-time buyers, their first home may not be their forever home. People might buy as a single person or a couple, and then suddenly they're going to have a family, and the place outgrows them, and they will be able to do that. They'll be able to sort of move on, second step.
A lot of people think that it is just for first-time buyers, but that's a really good example of it. It's not. Home movers, people that need to buy a bigger home to suit their growing family needs. We see it all the time, but also couples that are going through a separation. We do help people as well keep their foot on the property ladder.
Absolutely.
If they don't want to sell and move in with mum and dad.
Absolutely.
And they want to keep there.
I think also not all shared ownerships are in the what everybody thinks a first-time buyer age bracket is. No, I meet people that are in their 50s, even 60s, who are using shared ownership for the first time. It's amazing. It opens up a complete door for these people. So it's really for everybody. There's no age limit to this.
No, there really isn't. So what kind of challenges would you say that your readers have demonstrated when looking into this process?
I think the biggest thing is saving up for the deposit, because if you are, what we've just said, renting, and you're still having to pay bills and you've still got to live, we all have to live, there isn't really much left over to save. So I think that's the biggest bugbear for people.
It really is.
During the pandemic, a lot of people did move back home with their family, and they saved a lot. So I think that was an amazing opportunity. I mean, it was a horrendous time for everybody, but it sort of made their lives slightly easier. But the saving part is the biggest thing. But some of the deposits are only like £5,000.
So we've even seen less than that. And in fact, actually, there's a really good tool on the Martin Lewis Money Saving Experts website. Yes. They've actually got a calculator, and I had a little play with it the other day, because it calculates how long it takes to save for a deposit.
Yes.
So I put in a calculation based on saving 5% on if I was buying on the open market versus a shared ownership home, just to see how long it would take. Now, you can tweak how much you're willing to put aside every month.
Absolutely.
So obviously, how much you put in depends on how long it would take. But it was the difference of 1 to 2 years to 5 to 6 years. Like,
amazing.
The difference was incredible when you could go in, buy a shared ownership home, and then staircase, essentially.
Absolutely.
Because if you think about it, prices, if you're in an area where prices are on the up, it's going to take you even longer, because your dream goal is getting further out of reach.
Well, that's why people should look at regeneration areas that, might not look quite perfect at the moment, but give it a couple of years and they'll all change.
Yeah, and there's plenty out there at the moment. But we've also got, actually, we've really got a handy tool on our website as well, sharedownership.co.uk. We've got a calculator that lets you know what it could cost. So whilst you're looking at your deposits and how much you need to save, you can also go online and do a little calculator to see what those monthly costs would be, and you can see if that would
actually be affordable.
Work for you and affordable.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's what it's about, affordable housing. But the other thing I picked up from the Money Saving Experts website was they've got some really good tips on savings and ISAs and how to get the most for your money. So I did find it was a really good tool.
It's an amazing website. We all love Martin Lewis. I mean, he's just like the king.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. The fact that you might be able to afford the deposit, and you've got your mortgage, but you have to be aware that there are other costs, and it's life as well. So it's very important that you make your list of what you think you're going to spend a month, so that you actually then get a handle on actually how much money you will have. Because we all say go without a holiday, or don't do this, don't do that, but life is not quite like that. Sometimes you just need a little break, or you want a bottle of wine at the weekend, or whatever it might be. So you've got to be realistic, I think.
I think that's great advice. And in terms of mortgages then, what advice would you give?
Now, mortgages, most important thing. Do not just pop down to your local bank where you probably, who goes to a bank these days anyway, but if there is a branch, really, really seek an independent financial advisor, because at the end of the day, they will look at the whole of the market, every mortgage that's out there, and they will get the best deal for you, not the one that the bank thinks you should have, but the one that will suit you. And independent financial advisors, they are amazing, because they will really tell you exactly where you're at, what you can afford, which is the best option, and will help you in hand. And I'm really keen that first-time buyers, that's what we do with the magazine, that's what you do at So Resi, and that's what independent financial advisors do, is hold your hand so that you feel that you've got really good advice that you can trust. So I think that's probably the most important bit of advice. Don't just wander around and think, I've got to get a mortgage. I'll just pop down to NatWest or Lloyds. They're great banks. There's nothing wrong with them. And you might end up having a NatWest mortgage, but seek advice.
Absolutely. And I think you want to explore, as you say, the whole market. And we actually work with specialist shared ownership financial advisors.
Yes.
So if anyone is listening and they would like to get some financial advice, just reach out to us, sharedownership.co.uk. We can put you in touch with a specialist shared ownership mortgage advisor who can help you on your journey. And I think it's really important to understand what you can buy and how much you can borrow, because it's so disheartening when you've got your heart set on a particular property only to find out a little bit further down the line that it doesn't quite meet your financial requirements.
And the other thing a lot of people don't know as first-time buyers is your credit rating is vital. Not many people take very much notice of their credit rating. It's not something that is on your radar. But I would suggest they also go to one of the big credit agencies. There's, I think, 3 out there. Experian, I personally think, are brilliant. Get what your credit rating is. And if your credit rating is low and you won't be able to get a mortgage, they will help you to actually get your credit rating up. There's lots of things you can do. So don't be scared, don't be frightened that you think, oh my gosh, I didn't pay a bill and my credit rating's not very good. You will get help. So I would think that's very important as well.
That's great advice. And I think there's a lot of people that actually don't understand that using a credit card in a certain way can actually go against you. I found this out once, that if you draw money out on a credit card on holiday, some credit cards, it can be seen that you're in distress. So things that you might not have even known about, and you might think you've got a squeaky clean credit rating, it's definitely worth checking it out and getting some advice and some tips if you do need to boost your rating.
I think that's another big, it's all the A words today, is advice and affordability. So I think that advice, ask questions, as many questions as you can possibly think, because without knowledge you can't really do it. You need to know.
You do. Okay, so we've covered how to save for a deposit, how to get some financial advice. It's now time to start looking. What resources would you recommend?
Well, there's an awful lot out there that you can look at. Obviously, So Resi have got an amazing website, so great. We have we're in the process of creating a really all-singing, all-dancing website, which I would really like the readers to go to. So it's firsttimebuyermag.com. We have guides and all sorts of information on there, and properties, etc., etc. So obviously go there. You can look at the Right Moves, the Zoopla, Share to Buy, which is obviously the one that a lot of people go to. People just love looking at properties, but please, please, please be aware of what Sarah said. Don't look at a place and not know you can afford to say, I must have this one. This is my dream home. If you can't afford it, you are going to get very, very depressed.
It can be very disheartening, can't it?
Look at it, get ideas, get a feel for it. And I also think that, obviously, talking to your friends and family, somebody else has done it. I would say, maybe your parents have bought, and it might be a long time ago, but they will still remember a bit about it. And they're always good to maybe just have a chat with and get their advice as well.
Yeah, and it's always nice to go out with someone as well, viewing, so you're not on your own and you can get a second opinion and you can visualise what that living space might look like, and enjoy it. I've been in this industry for over 20 years now, and I never get bored of looking at proproperties, looking at details. I absolutely love it.
Well, to be honest, it's for me and people like you who are probably very sad, this is my pastime as well. I like the look of that one. This is a ridiculous situation.
I cruise Right Move and So Resi for fun.
It's a bit of a bit of a weird thing, but it is such a drug. It really
is. But obviously, it's not just about new homes, and I think this is something that people don't always know, that it's not just nice, shiny new homes properties that cater for shared ownership, but also resale properties too.
I love resales.
And just for the people who are listening who don't know what a resale is, it's sort of our internal language for a pre-owned home. So much like you would see on the open market, on Rightmove, they're lived-in properties, and our sellers then go on to sell their share. So when you are looking, don't just pigeonhole yourself. Look at all of the options out there.
Yes.
If you go onto our website, sharedownership.co.uk, UK, you can actually search for both new homes and resale properties. There's plenty there to choose from.
I love resales because you're moving into a community that's already established, and I think that's really important because as a first-time buyer, you're going to be moving in very, very excited. But a lot of people want to know who the neighbours are or what's going on in the area, and I think that's amazing when you go into an older property, as you say, a pre-loved property, that you will have neighbours that have been there for quite a while and they'll be able to help you.
Yeah, and you can ask questions.
Yeah.
And through the conveyancing process as well. If you want to find something out from the seller, real about the area, about the neighbours, again, you can put it through the legal inquiries as well. And on that note, with legal inquiries, the importance, I cannot stress enough, of using a lawyer that fully understands shared ownership. It's super important. What's your 100%. Take on it?
Oh, definitely. Again, my advice don't just walk. So a lot of people, I mean, all of us really, we don't use lawyers or solicitors on a regular basis. So it's a bit scary. You're thinking, I don't talk to these sort of... You always think legal, you think you've done something wrong. But these people are absolutely expert at the way that these things have to work from a legal point of view. And there are expert shared ownership conveyancers who are brilliant at what they do, and they specialise in a lot of them first-time buyers. So again, a bit of hand-holding. So do look and find somebody that actually knows what they're doing, because buying a shared ownership place from a legal point of view is slightly different when you're doing the legal side to buying on the open market. So you do need somebody that knows all the wherewithal with that.
Yeah, a shared ownership lawyer is worth their weight in gold because they understand the lease.
Yeah.
They'll only ask the necessary legal inquiries that are requested. Whereas if you get a lawyer that doesn't understand it, they'll raise a whole bucket load of questions, some of which can't even be answered. No. And that's when you get to a bit of a sticking point.
And you'll also be paying a lot more.
You will.
Because
yes, exactly.
A lot of the conveyancers that do deal with shared ownership, they do a kind of package. So you'll get a very good deal, because most lawyers, you pick up the phone or write a letter or an email these days, and you're talking 50 quid. So try and get somebody that is an expert, knows what they're doing, and probably will offer you a very nice little package of what they can provide for you, and not too... you've still got to work on a budget, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we have some lawyers that we actually do recommend that we know are very good at interpreting a shared ownership lease. So we do have a recommended panel of lawyers, and they will do a quotation with a sort of a fixed, fully inclusive fee. So you know what you're going to pay and you can budget.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes getting the cheapest quote can seem quite appealing.
I agree.
But it can take longer, it can cause more stress. You might find that you haven't got a lawyer who's specifically overseeing your case. There could be administrators who are doing the transacting, and that's when it can get a little bit messy.
Yes.
So my advice would be pay a little bit more and get someone who really knows their stuff.
I completely agree. And they're still very reasonable. They're still not going to break the bank. And I think also they are very much trained to talk. So you will have an account handler that will be, you can pick up the phone if you've got a query and you'll talk to the same person, which I think is really important.
It is really important, yeah.
It would be very disconcerting having to explain the situation 50 times.
I mean, in most parts, it's your most valuable asset, so why would you cut costs?
No way.
So moving on to sort of customer experiences, I know that you've interviewed quite a few customers in the First Time Buyer magazine. Can you share any memorable stories or interviews that you've done where a customer has achieved home ownership through shared ownership?
Well, we get loads and loads of case studies, and some of them are absolutely real happy ever after stories, which are lovely to read. And, I'm amazed that they've achieved their dream. Some of them very young. They've just managed to do it, which is lovely. We have a thing we do hold once a year, which is National Homebuying Week. We did a film of our own, and we interviewed 3 different types of first-time buyers. And there was one particular couple. Sadly, they didn't buy through you, I'm afraid, but we won't dwell on that. Oh my gosh, the joy, the happiness, the absolute excitement they had basically been there in their new home for about a month, and they were just ecstatic. I can't even tell you. And every minute of their day was planning going to IKEA at the weekend, what they could afford to buy this week to add to the interior. They didn't really go about it in all honesty, the sort of regular route.
Okay.
Where we tell people research and, don't just jump in with both feet. Find out what you can afford. They didn't quite follow that, and they were very lucky. So I wouldn't recommend this, but they just turned up at a development and they decided they liked this particular apartment, and it did work out. They got it, but that isn't the way to do it. Very lucky. Yeah. But from an enthusiastic, lovely couple that it's just all their dreams have come true. That stands out in my mind.
It's so lovely, isn't it, when you get to hand over the keys? And this is the part that I love about my job.
I'd love to do that.
Even though I'm not necessarily on the front line anymore, if I get the opportunity to go and meet someone and hand them their keys, I jump at the chance.
Yes, I can imagine. Because that moment of putting your key in the door.
Yeah, and knowing that is your home.
Yeah.
The other week, one of my colleagues went off to do a completion with a family, and it was their first home, and there were some Christmas decorations up outside, and we've got a beautiful photo of them. So excited that they're starting their first family home together, and it was just such a lovely moment.
Oh, the children must have been over the moon. You know.
They were just in time for Christmas as well.
What a present is that?
And they had a chimney. They had a chimney, so they're in luck.
Gosh. Love it.
Right, so Lynda, top tips for a first-time buyer.
Right, well, I would say, first of all, what I've just, obviously I'm going to repeat myself, see an independent financial advisor to find out how much you can actually borrow and at what mortgage you can get, because without that, you just working in the dark. Decide on what your location is, because some people don't really know where they want to be, so try and knuckle down what location so that you focus your attention on that place. Walk around, and if you find somewhere, go for a walk in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Get a feel for how it is. Make a list of things that are really important to you. Now, you might have to compromise, but if it's transport, see how far the station is or the bus stop. If it's schools, check out the local schools. If it's shops, find out that. Or it could be entertainment. It could be green space. So there's a lot of things that you might want, and you might be able to say, I really, really, really need 3 of those, but I could do without the other 2, because everybody has to compromise in life. So I would say that. I would consider, if you're really starting and you haven't quite got enough, look at a lifetime ISA. Find out, how you can save. There are ways of saving. You can get these cards. I think they're like, I'm not sure, I've not got one, but it's a card that when you pay on your card, if there's say it's $6.95.
Oh, it transfers some of the change into a savings
account.
I think that's Monzo.
I think it's Monzo.
Yeah.
I haven't personally got one. I do know people, but I thought 5p or 3p or whatever it might be. But boy, does that rack up. And my own son has got one. And we're going on a very big family holiday next year, and he's saved £750 on this card.
Wow.
So I was so knocked out by this. I thought, wow. So that's probably quite good to look into it. It doesn't work for everybody, but I think it's a really good thing to look at. And I think ask as many questions when you go on a viewing, when you're talking to your financial man or woman, when you're talking to your conveyancer. Ask questions. You very rightly said, take somebody else with you, because a bit like going to the doctors, you hear one thing and somebody else hears something completely different, because you're in the moment and they're just an observer. Make notes. If you're unsure, just write down things and then take those notes and say, I need to know this, and this. And even if you're just saying where you think where you might put the settee or something like that, you can just focus a little bit on that day, and don't just go once. Probably go more than once to look at a place. You can't make a decision in one go.
No, you can't. Definitely.
You need to have a little bit, and take your friend, take your mum, take your dad, whatever.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you, Lynda. And I guess for me, don't pigeonhole yourself. As I've said before, there's lots of new build, lovely shiny new homes, but there's equally some beautiful resale properties. So don't just pigeonhole yourself to one or the other. Look at all of the options. Have patience. It can happen really quickly, or it can take a bit of time, but it's super exciting.
Yeah.
You're buying a property, and it's a really exciting adventure to go on.
Such an exciting moment.
And just to echo, Lynda, what you said about it's really important to have a conveyancer and a mortgage broker who really knows their stuff.
Absolutely.
Now, before we end, I thought we could play a little game.
Oh, I like a little game.
It's a true or false game.
Okay.
It's called Is It So? Or is it no?
I love it.
Notice the punchline there.
That's very good.
So number 1, shared ownership means that you live with a stranger. Is it so or is it no?
It's definitely no. It's one of the biggest myths about shared ownership.
I do get this question asked quite a lot.
I do too. I know. And it's bizarre, but no, you really don't live with a stranger. No.
You are buying your home. It is your home to live in. I would not recommend entering into a contract with somebody that you don't know, that's for sure. You can't earn more than £60,000. Is it so or is it no?
It's a no.
It's a no. You're right. So you can earn up to, as a joint income, £80,000 outside of London, or £90,000 as a joint income inside of London. And lastly, you can only buy an apartment on shared ownership. Is it so or is it no?
Another no. Another no. No, you can buy a family home and a house. There's all sorts, duplexes.
That's right. I even listed a bungalow not that long ago.
Yeah.
So they're very few and far between. But I had a bungalow on my books a while ago, that sold very quickly.
Yeah, no, I like a bungalow. It's quite nice.
It is. It really is. So on that note, let's call it a wrap. Thank you so much, Lynda, for joining us today.
It's been so enjoyable.
It really has. Thank you so much. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in to So in the Know. And if you'd like to learn more about shared ownership, don't forget to subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, X or Apple Podcasts. So until next time, thank you for listening.